Under the law, no one but the president gets to pick what's presidential records. No one but the president gets to pick what are personal records. And I want to read to you some of the material from Judge Amy Berberman Jackson's decision, and we'll link to it so you can read it in full. And she provides the background. And I'm reading this to you directly. It's because it just, as I said, you can see why, given this decision, just how corrupt the raid on Trump was in terms of providing evidence that there was no good faith basis for the raid. According to plaintiff, Judicial Watch, President Clinton enlisted Taylor Branch to assist him in creating an oral history of his 8 years in office. In 2009, Branch published a book entitled The Clinton Tapes: Wrestling History with the President, based upon extensive conversations with President Clinton during his tenure in the White House and the events Branch observed when he was in the president's office. Plaintiff avers that from January 20th, 1993 to January 20th, 2001, Branch recorded 79 audio tapes that preserved not only President Clinton's thoughts and commentary on contemporaneous events and issues he was facing as president, but in some instances recorded actual events such as presidential telephone conversations. Based on Branch's book, plaintiff contends that the recordings captured a verbatim record of President Clinton being president. The complaint alleges that the tapes captured a wide range of presidential matters, including potential changes to his cabinet, including whether to fire then CIA Director James Woolsey Jr., or whether to nominate Madeleine Albright as Secretary of State. Foreign policy decisions such as the United States military involvement in Haiti and the contemplated relaxation of the United States embargo in Cuba. I forgot that Clinton invaded Haiti. Jeez, talk about an area worthy of further investigation. But I get distracted. But just Google Clinton and Haiti, you'll see what I mean. President Clinton's side of telephone conversations with foreign leaders, members of the United States Senate and Cabinet Secretary. So the side of telephone conversation with foreign leaders, that typically is material that is inherently classified. President Clinton speaking to several members of the United States Senate, in which President Clinton attempted to persuade the senators to vote against a specific amendment before the Senate. President Clinton's side of a telephone conversation with Congressman Bill Natcher of Kentucky, in which the president explained his reasoning for entering into the North American Free Trade Agreement, based on technical forecasts that he received during presidential briefings. That sounds potentially classified. President Clinton's side of a telephone conversation with the U.S. Secretary of State Warren Christopher concerning a diplomatic impasse over Bosnia. So all of this is not only obviously related to government operations that are significant in terms of potentially educating the American people about what President Clinton was doing and thinking, but it's on their face, some of it would have been typically classified and would have had to be declassified in order for Americans typically to gain access to them. And all we wanted the archives to do was go get these documents and process them according to law. It didn't mean they would be forced to release everything they had, because I said there are some certain limits as to what we can get. But this is what was being disclosed. And the court told us we should jump in the lake. I'm joking a little bit there, but that's essentially what the court found. The categorization of the records during the presidency controls what happens next. And she was talking about how the Presidential Records Act presumes that the president is the one denoting what is a presidential record and what are personal records. At the conclusion of the president's term, the archivist is directed to assume responsibility for the custody, control, and preservation of and access to the presidential records of that president. The archivist is required to make such records available to the public as rapidly and completely as possible, consistent with the provisions of the Presidential Records Act. The statute, this is key, assigns the archivist no role, again, no role with respect to personal records once the presidency concludes. So let me be clear. Under the law, no one but the president gets to pick what's presidential records. No one but the president gets to pick what are personal records. And the archivist, which is being used as a cutout for the anti-Trumpers in running our government here in D.C., has no authority to second-guess him. In fact, the only limited judicial review of the presidential records decisions are basically a kind of a transparency analysis that certain records are being designated as presidential records when in fact they're just regular old FOIA records that can be released more quickly and more easily. There's no court decision, except this one, as best I can understand it, that give the archives or anyone else in an agency, any other agency, including the Justice Department or the FBI, any authority to second-guess the president here. As I said, a lawyer for the Justice Department, I've got the transcript here, you can look it up, said that because the president, in this case Bill Clinton, did not transfer the material, they're his, they're personal. Again, further in the decision, the PRA requires the president to maintain records documenting the policies, activities, and decisions of his administration, but leaves the implementation of such a requirement in the president's hands. The Presidential Records Act is on thin ice constitutionally. The Congress recognized that, look, the president has prerogatives as president of the United States, head of the executive branch. We can't come in there and manage his day-to-day operations. We can try to make sure that certain records that are created on behalf of the American people that document his activities officially are kept, a la the Federal Records Act. But we can't come in and say, oh no, you should have kept that one as a presidential record and you can't have that one as a personal record. Because that gets too much into the heart of the operations of the White House, which constitutionally is a separate branch of government. But they've blown all that up right now by pretending they can go in and raid his home based on this very dispute. Unbelievable. It's really troubling that a court would have allowed this to take place. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.